we are live with the second ever SDR managers, SDR leaders, or are you leading a BDR function across the UK and Europe? We are at the SDR Manager Sales Confidence event. This wouldn't be possible without the inspiration from Shabri, who is the CEO and founder of SalesWorks, and also does a huge amount of consultancy around the SDR manager role, which is something that is increasingly developing and growing all the time. Today, we've also got a special guest in Jack, who's going to be opening up a 7-minute talk. And Jack's also a leader at Aircall that we're going to ask a few questions about in a moment. Shabri, how are you feeling about this event? Because after the first one, we had a hugely positive reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I was blown away by the reaction at the first one, sort of 400 people. It was phenomenal. I remain to be just as excited about this. I think we've seen a big shift over the last month or so with people going back to the office a little bit. I know a lot of SDR managers right now who are heads down with hiring as they're going into H2 and onboarding, creation of playbooks. And I know that's a topic that we're going to cover today. So I'm really, really excited. And, we've come together with Aircall and Gong to actually launch a benchmarking study and report that is going to be UK specific, that looks at SDR leadership and sales development as a whole. So I'm sure most people on this call are familiar with the Bridge Group report that the amazing Trish Bertuzzi does. And that focuses very much on North America. And one of the things that I wish I had was some UK specific data. And we've made huge strides with you, James, on this as a specific event for SDR managers in the UK. And now the next piece of that is going to be actual data on quota attainment and everything that you want to know. So really, really happy to be working with Gong and Aircall on that. So I'm going to drop the links to that in the comments. And if you can take 5 to 10 minutes to fill that out, you'll be one of the first to receive a copy of that too.
Fantastic. That's a nice segue, Jack. Maybe you can help people understand a little bit about what Aircall's all about and why you got behind the survey as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, Aircall, for those of you who may be unfamiliar, we're a cloud-based phone system basically optimized around your customer-facing teams, so sales and support. As a result, I think we've probably got a few customers on the call as well. And in terms of getting behind the survey, I think it was really like a good chance to find out what we're up against, how we can maybe improve the service that we're offering, just I guess to keep refining the service that we currently have. Really delving into the depths, the nitty gritty.
Amazing. So I've got a couple of my own personal survey questions just to start this off and get people engaged. Can you just say in the chat where you're dialing in from? If it's a 1-bedroom flat in Hoxton, a mansion in the Hamptons, or wherever you might be, can you just let us know where you are, just so that we can see that there's people online and they're starting to engage. So let us know where you're dialing in from. Same to the speakers as well. All the speakers today, if you haven't seen the format of this event, are going to do 7 minutes. And then after their 7 minutes, there will be a panel discussion at the end of the event, which Shabri is going to lead. Now, we select these speakers based on the recommendations from sales VPs and CROs in the market across Europe. And it takes a long time for us to vet individuals to select this group and this cohort today. So I'm really excited about the lineup that we've got. And you're in for a real treat because people have put a lot of time and effort into these talks. The second question is, part of the reason we did this is because many of you are in your first leadership role. And, you're taking on a huge amount of stress and pressure to drive a very important function in your business. But what I'd like to understand, I've got a specific question, it's a yes or no answer. How many of you dream or want or are willing, should be the word, to become a sales VP in the future? Yes or no? So are you in the SDR manager role because you're going into an accelerated leadership role? How many of you want to be a sales VP or a CRO in the future? Yes or no? So while we're gathering, good to see Aoife from Dublin. God, we've got Austin Brightland. We've got Luke from the London office who's speaking today. Good man. Marcus in Basingstoke. Lucy in not so sunny Manchester. We've got a Holly Allen that wants to be a sales leader. Okay, there's quite a few of you. Okay, that's good. So one of the things I just want to plug before we get into Jack's talk for 7 minutes is on the 7th of July, we're running our annual Sales Leaders Conference for the top VPs in the world. So we run this every year. This is the 4th year we're doing it. You can register for free. We've got all our sponsors that are gathered, and we've got some of the top sales VPs and CROs in the sales tech space available. So that's just a quick plug to get to SaaS Growth this year, and I'll put the link in the comments so you can join. Right, Shabri, is there any parting words or any opening lines that you want to add before we invite Jack to do the first 7-minute talk?
I'm super excited to hear the talks today. I've seen the topics, I've seen the content, and I'm really excited to get to watch all of them today. So everyone who's watching these talks, feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat, and I will make sure that we address all of them in the panel discussion after. So sit back and enjoy.
Amazing. Thank you, Shabri. So Jack, you're first up. You're a brave man. So Jack is the SDR team lead for Northern Europe at Aircall. He's going to be talking about using autonomy and accountability to grow your teams. Jack joined Aircall in July 2019 as an SDR and has progressed as the current lead for Northern Europe, which is a fantastic achievement in such a short time. So kudos to you, Jack. He previously held a business development role at Usecure, and you earned your MBA in French and Management at the University of St Andrews. So first 7-minute speaker today, Jack, over to you.
Lovely. Thanks very much for that intro, James, as well. Yeah, so as James has said, this is Jack from Aircall. Massive thank you to everybody over at Sales Confidence for hosting today's event. And I'm actually really grateful as well for the opportunity to speak with everyone who's managed to tune in, as well as being also very excited to hear from my fellow speakers. I've had the chance to catch up with them very briefly in a few icebreaker sessions, and they definitely have a lot of insightful info to be sharing. So as James has kind of alluded to, I'm still relatively new to the management side of things, but I definitely think after having spent 2 years within Aircall and occupying the roles that I have, so I've been an SDR, I've been a team lead, and I'm now actually in the process of transferring over to being an SDR manager. It has given me a really valuable insight into each of these roles and how the different members of a sales team actually interact with one another. So as James mentioned, today I'm going to be discussing my experiences with accountability and autonomy, and how I think you can actually leverage both of these factors when managing a sales team. So for me, a logical place to start is definitely with the accountability side of things, holding your team accountable. And it's definitely something that I've found to be one of the more demanding aspects of management. So for example, staying on top of each individual sales rep to make sure they're putting in the hard yards day in, day out, it can be really tough. Especially when you're also trying to maybe keep one eye on, the end of month totals for the whole team. Maybe also trying to make sure that motivation's at where it needs to be. Also maybe the well-being in terms of mental health and things of your reps. And so it's really important to drill down into the main metrics that are going to make up an SDR's day. And for me, the key here, it's going to be daily behavior. Put yourself in an SDR's shoes when evaluating each of your end goal metrics and ask yourself, how do I do that? So in our case, how do I get demo points? Well, I do that by having opportunities qualify. And how do these opportunities get qualified? Well, I do that by booking meetings. And then how do I book meetings? Well, I do that by speaking with the right people. And then from here, you can really start to break down these end goal metrics into the constituent parts, which then form your daily tasks. So for us at Aircall, our overall goal would be, X demo points a month. And then from there, we can break that down into the daily metrics that ultimately lead to qualified demos. That would be, demos booked, any discovery calls that are scheduled, then your regular calls, your emails, and your LinkedIn steps, alongside as well maybe your new companies that are being added into the CRM. And by focusing on these elements that you can actually control, your SDR's daily task numbers, it becomes much easier to make sure that A, they're staying on target, and B, getting a gauge for whether they're likely to hit quota, either for the month or for the quarter. Admittedly as well, to truly foster a culture of accountability, you're also going to need to have an element of transparency. Managers and SDRs need to be in agreement on which daily metrics are being tracked. And you also need to have an alignment over how many of these inputs are expected each day and what our overall goal is. And so to remain as open as possible at Aircall, one of our main initiatives was to give the SDRs more of a say when it came to benchmarking our expected daily metrics. Rather than management just, I guess, prescribing what they saw as the right amount of inputs, we actually chose to sit down and jointly come up with a figure that was A, going to get us to target month on month, and then B, be something that was attainable and sustainable in the long run, according to our SDRs. And so by setting these expectations together, it's definitely helped our SDRs to A, have that buy-in, and B, remain consistent as well day to day, which has been particularly important in the last couple of years. We've had to contend with a team that's scaling at a ridiculous pace, lots of people getting promoted, lots of new starters as well, whilst also contending with remote work for long stints. We've also made a lot of use as well of several different mechanisms of helping SDRs hold themselves accountable as well. This could be, providing them with an individual dashboard which shows their key daily and weekly metrics, or a more team-focused wallboard that allows us to both celebrate those group wins, but also allow individuals to see how they're tracking against other members of the team. Another cultural aspect actually that we've really looked to build out in more detail is tackling any potential excuses as well as soon as they arise. I'm sure we've all heard, I'm going to struggle to hit this month because I've maybe spent too much time prospecting or dealing with the admin side of sales. And the way we've actually gone about doing so is by ensuring that our team has everything in place to be spending as much time on our core function, and that is selling. So we're lucky enough to have Aircall as an in-house tool for our calling function, which, it's brilliant. It integrates straight into Salesforce. And it basically means that any manual admin, whether it be logging calls or any info, it goes straight into the CRM. And that all that kind of manual admin is kept to an absolute minimum. However, we sometimes will also have SDRs maybe flag concerns about the quality of, maybe it's the prospect data that's within the CRM, or they maybe want more leads to chase each month. And if it's clear that these issues are becoming recurrent across the team, maybe they get raised on a more regular basis by more than one SDR, then adjustments need to be made. And in our case, this has involved keeping a very open dialogue with the marketing team and sales ops team to ensure that processes are in a constant state of refinement, and also that our team has the right tools and processes in place to achieve our goals. I guess the next subject as well that I do want to touch on a little bit beyond this is autonomy within a sales team and the associated benefits that I've actually been able to see so far. So now, as I've mentioned already, it's definitely a case of striking a balance. Here at Aircall, as I mentioned, we have these minimum expectations in terms of daily inputs, and they form a really good framework to fall within. But then provided you're actually hitting those, we do offer a large degree of flexibility in terms of how you choose to work. I'd say this has really gone on to pay dividends across the Aircall team, as I'm sure at some point in all of our lives, I think we've been micromanaged to the absolute nth degree. And there really isn't much that's more stifling than an experience like that. And so across our team, there's really been an upward kick as SDRs have gravitated towards different means of outreach. For example, one of our SDRs, Abdel, he'll take the time to really hyper-personalize his emails. He might, put like a photoshopped image in or really delve into somebody's backstory. Whilst Rebecca, she places a lot of focus on the voice side of things, whether it be using Aircall to dial out or maybe sending over a personalized voice note on LinkedIn. I have actually just clocked the time as well, so I'll definitely start to wrap up here, James. I guess in summary, what it really comes down to when you're building out a culture of accountability is trying to establish clear goals. Start with your end of month targets, and then you can reverse engineer this, so you can better grasp which daily inputs are needing to be tracked. And then also, if you want to ensure buy-in on the part of the SDRs, then involve them in the process as well, and make sure that they're able to track their inputs. Secondly, I think it's important to, as I mentioned, remove excuses. Provide your team with the right tools to achieve their goals, ask them for the feedback, and make sure that this is an ongoing process as well. And remember, if issues are arising, then it's a chance to adjust rather than maybe punishing the SDRs who are flagging them. And then finally as well, use these expected daily inputs as a framework for adding a degree of structure to the day in the life of an SDR, but then also allow them to retain a degree of freedom in how they work. And this is going to help you to basically fuel your creative outreach and also promote diversity of thought across the team. I'll pass back over to James now. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jack. I love that, especially the point that you made around, if you want to get buy-in, involve them in the process. So really great to hear that that's part of Aircall's culture. Okay, next up we have Luke Boddis, Director of BDR team over at checkout.com. So Luke joined Checkout last October as a BDR manager and has recently been promoted to BDR director. So congratulations, Luke. Prior to Checkout.com, he held roles with Oracle and Statista. He's an active member in the sales development community in London. He's a member of the Revenue Collective and Sales Development Leaders, as well as being a mentor with Grad Guide. So Luke's going to be talking today about the power of the playbook. So he's going to be sharing how to build a playbook from the ground up, and having relied heavily on this playbook, sharing some of the lessons there on what he's included in that, and also ways to stay innovative with different needs. So I'm really looking forward to this, Luke. Over to you.
No, perfect. No pressure then. But no, thank you, Shabri. Thank you, James, for the invite to this. I do have a couple of slides, so I will share my screen. But essentially, to give some backstory to myself then. So I joined Checkout in October of last year. And when I joined, there was no BDR division. We essentially built this up from the ground up. And one thing I realized is that when you first join a company, you can get quite excited. And especially as a BDR manager, you're thinking, I need to start hiring straight away. That's the only way I can grow. But for myself, it was kind of taking a back seat and realizing that the most important thing, and almost thinking back to when I was a BDR, is what do I wish I had to be successful in my role? And essentially it came down to a playbook. And this is a statistic that really meant a lot to me. And I think Aaron Evans shared this on it the other day, is that companies with a sales playbook are 33% more likely to be high performers. And I think there's many reasons around this. So for me, why a playbook is so important, not just for a new BDR function, not for just a new sales function, but even for a BDR function that's been going for a couple of years and is more kind of successful, is that it lays down the foundations. A playbook is an actual document that can be physical or can be stored online that allows you to share success and to share the best practices going. In the crazy world we're living in right now, when I first joined Checkout, when all of our BDRs first joined, it was all remote working. All of our onboarding was remote as well. So we really had to come up with a way that can allow our BDRs to learn as quickly as possible, but also to make sure they can hit the ground running. So what I wanted to kind of show you all today is my thinking behind the playbook, the different sections I've included, why I've included them. And I know we only have 7 minutes, so I'll try and keep this short and sweet. But essentially, the playbook provides the entire framework for us to scale and for us to grow. So in a very short period of time at Checkout, when it was just me in October, we now have 10 BDRs. We're set to increase by more than double by the end of this year. And it's been great to see that kind of started and that framework started from this playbook as well. So this is something that I got from Kevin Dorsey, who did a great chat on building out his playbook. What I've kind of titled this is put a P back in playbook. And I think any good playbook needs to focus around these 4 elements, which are your people, prospects, process, and product. Once you have these as your sort of core foundations to your playbook, you can kind of tailor it and go off in different tangents. So let's start with people. And people essentially refers to your team of BDRs. Whether you already have a team in place, maybe you're hiring quite aggressively and looking to go into new regions, a BDR team will only be successful if you give your BDRs the tools and the platform to be successful. So in the entire people section, these are just some of the sections that I've covered. So what does success actually look like? Now, this can be taken from BDRs who are already in seats, share best practices, what have they been doing, how have they hit the ground running. Essentially, we all have sales experience as well. So what did we help when we were first getting into a sales career? A lot of us were fresh graduates, and this was our first kind of role, was a BDR, SDR. So what were we doing that allowed us to be in the positions we're in right now? In the people section, I'm also very transparent. At checkout, we outline the entire career progression for our BDRs. We want them to be motivated, we want them to be determined, and to really outline how far they can grow at checkout. We also include our KPIs, and something I actually got from Shabri as well, is to have a mission, but also a vision statement as well for a BDR function. Because I think we all know, and we all can all say, that the BDR function is the heartbeat of the commercial org. In here as well, I also have stuff like a one-to-one template. So before every one-to-one, a BDR fills out this template. It provides a lot more structure to our one-to-ones. It means they can make the most out of that hour as well. And then we have a section on our tech stack, what's included, and essentially how to use it as well. We then go on to the second P, which is prospects, and this is all about our target market. What we have here is our case studies, what sets us apart from our main competition. I'm a massive believer in value-based selling. So instead of selling the features of your product, selling the value, and that really comes down to your ICP, but also your ideal behavioral profiles as well. You'll have different CFOs in who's one of our target market at different companies. What they look for may change, and it's about how we can leverage our messaging to essentially cut through the usual BDR traffic as well. The third P is process. And what I include here is essentially everything I wish that I had when I was a BDR. So we have various different cadences. We now have SalesLoft, which has been amazing. I don't know if there's anyone from SalesLoft on this call, but it has been an absolute game changer for us. So we now have all of our cadences in the playbook. We can kind of share, comment on them. We have transcripts. So again, putting back to when I was a recent graduate, what sort of talk tracks used to work for me, but also what success have we seen from our more tenured BDRs. We have a variety of different templates from both inbound, outbound, different situations, such as the breakup email, video templates. And I guess the main thing, and how this kind of goes hand in hand with remote onboarding, is that all of the training in the playbook, we do live sessions as well. So if a BDR may forget something we mentioned, or perhaps can't even make the live session, they can always refer back to the training. And ultimately, in the world we live in now in remote working, you won't have a BDR who is sitting next to you on the desk. They may need to look back, or they may be on a phone call and very want to quickly look at, oh, how do I sell against X competitor? It's all there in the playbook for them. And most importantly, we have all of our rules of engagement as well. And our playbook is not just shared with BDRs, it's also shared with the wider commercial org. So sales reps can see the relationship. They can see the best way to have a happy, positive relationship with a BDR as well. And it's all documented in here. So it's very, very clear, very, very transparent. And we give all of our BDRs the platform to be successful. And then lastly is the product. We all believe that our product is the best product. So now we need to kind of write down why we are the best. And again, it goes down to value-based selling. In our case, we know that we have competition, but we need to leverage our proposition to really focus on the features and benefits. And this image here is actually in the playbook as well. Very, very simple image here, but really highlights the clear differences between features and benefits. In the product section as well, we also have why us, our competitive advantages, and again, that more consultative sell. How can we ensure that our BDRs are the expert when it comes to all things checkout? And hopefully this playbook will give them all the information that they need. So I know I'm just about to need time. How we continue our success, and most importantly for us, is that the playbook needs to be constantly updated. We evaluate our playbook at least once a month, really to make sure that we have the latest templates, information, competitor analysis in there that can give our BDRs the best chance of being successful. And again, at checkout, we're growing like crazy. So we need to make sure that our BDRs have everything that they will need to be successful in their role. I think what we're also doing from the playbook is the BDR team that I look after is European focused. And there's different ways to sell to different regions. How you may sell to Germany will be different how you sell to the UK, for example. So we're now taking this playbook and making more regional specific playbooks that our future BDRs going into that region can then utilize and make the most of. And just in time, the last point is to use. There is no point in having a playbook if it's not going to be used. So really do nail it in. For us, it's all part of the onboarding plan. Sometimes we even share the playbook before a BDR actually starts with us, again, so they can hit the ground running. We also have recorded calls in here as well. So again, they can really make the most of their time. And then when they're up and running, they will be the best BDR that they can be. But that's everything from me. Apologies, a lot of stuff to go through, but I hope that was useful for everyone.
Luke, a lot of value in there. Thank you for sharing. It's amazing the rocket ship ride that you've been on over the last 12 months. So congratulations on putting that and condensing it down into 7 minutes. It's not easy, is it?
It's definitely not easy, no.
But hopefully this will be the first of many in the future. So thank you very much. You can drop off now and then stay in the background. And I'm going to intro Raj. So Raj is going to be talking about the C word. How many C's do we know and avoid? No, not that C word. C word being culture. The importance of culture. Raj is the Director of Sales Development in EMEA at Sitecore. Hi Raj, how you doing?
Very well, thanks James. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. So he's going to be talking about, as I said, the culture and the environment that he's created for high performance across his SDR team. He's been at Sitecore for just over a year, held previous roles at fast-growing companies like Airship, Celigent, Cloud.iq, Trading Technologies, and LMAX Group. He's also a member of the Sales Development Leaders think tank, as well as a modern sales pro. So really, he's someone that is well invested in his personal development. He's someone that's been mentioned a number of times to get on this event. So I'm glad that you're finally here, Raj. Looking forward for you to share some gold.
Great, thank you for that lovely intro.
Cheers.
So yeah, thank you. And hi all, thanks both to James and Shabri for having me here, and to the fellow speakers for their insights, which were really, really great. So yeah, so as James said, I'm currently the director of a really fast-growing SDR team at Sitecore, with over 20 SDRs and managers, and we're just coming off the back of a huge $1.2 billion investment, which really led me to thinking we spend so much time and effort working on all these wonderful things to help our businesses and individuals scale, grow effectively, but one that often gets lost in the noise is culture. So culture is one of those things that we often just hope goes to plan. But what about we proactively plan for it instead of reactively adjusting? We often have company mission statements and company values, but what are we doing as individuals outside of this, both SDRs and leaders? So I wanted to start with some stats I found when researching this topic. Around half of job seekers say culture is important when searching. And correlating with this, half of job seekers cite this as a reason for leaving their current role. SDRs feel engaged around 20% more productive. So that's a real win-win for everyone. And employees that rate their manager poorly are 4 times more likely to interview for other positions in comparison to their peers. So whilst you process those stats and what they mean to you, I want to discuss a few ideas about how you think about improving culture within an SDR org. So for me, culture in an organisation starts with the people you hire and making sure you have a diverse mixture within the team, because the SDRs of today are our leaders of tomorrow. And as the landscape of the people we sell to is changing, so should our hiring processes. Include your SDRs as part of the hiring panel so that both potential new employees and the current employees get a feel for each other and understanding of what the culture is like. And they get to say, have a shape of what that culture is going to be moving forward. So next, we need to make sure they're really engaging with our teams as much as possible in fun, dynamic, and interactive ways, and lead by inspiring rather than dictating. Because if we as leaders are doing this with our SDRs, then in turn, our SDRs are going to be communicating with their colleagues and prospects in the same way. Create a culture of free thinking and let people fail fast in a safe environment. So the pressure on SDRs can be immense. I know, because I've done the role myself. But without letting people learn from their own failure, they're never going to grow at the pace they need to. And giving people the flexibility to try new ways of working and different things is, for me, where I've seen the best SDRs really thrive, because you all start to feed from each other throughout this process, and this accelerates the success. Allow SDRs to take ownership. So as any leader will know, we'll have more things to deal with than we have time in the day. And the other side of this, you have hungry SDRs that want to learn and grow, and prove to you and themselves that they're progressing. So delegating duties amongst your team they're capable of doing and allow them to shine. The first time around might need some coaching and feedback from you on how to improve this, but the next time it crops up, you have someone that's ready to carry the ball for you and run with it, and you're also nurturing these future leaders and giving them the challenges they all want. And for any SDRs listening, go to your leaders and ask for things like this too, because it shows willing and hunger, and it makes it easier for us to make the right choices for you. Create a social committee. So I think SDR teams, more than many others, really need a social aspect of their roles. What with many being the first job, having moved countries, and just needing to feel more comfortable, connected, and at home. And by having SDRs chair a social committee for ideas they have is a great way of empowering them to do so. So the pandemic certainly taught me that it's still possible to have fun whilst being all digital. And some of the things we have done at Sitecore have been things like virtual improv sessions, replicating popular TV game shows and quizzes. I'm happy to share more ideas with people after these sessions and what they bring. But by giving SDRs the opportunity to run things like this themselves, they get the chance to learn loads of skills that are applied as they progress through their career in SDR and leadership. So get feedback from the team. So at Sitecore, we do regular anonymous employee surveys, but do more outside of this. As leaders, allow your team to feel comfortable to give you constructive feedback and give them guidance on how to do this as well. And SDRs, don't wait for your leaders to ask you. Take the initiative and give regular updates outside of what we see on dashboards, such as where you see things can be improved, what you need more or less of, and just in general how you're feeling, right? Be aware of your mental state. In this space that we're all in right now, where we're operating, we're constantly running 100 miles an hour, back-to-back Zoom meetings, things can and will get missed. So having a culture of constant feedback is crucial for success. Set yourself a reminder in a diary so that every month or via an email or one-to-one, right, just with your leaders or your peers around you. Incentivize a culture of fun competition. So we run regular competitions each month in addition to SDR compensation plans and try to gamify activities that help us reach our desired goals. We've run tournaments and whole things over a month, or we run daily competitions, but by breaking up the routine and changing the dynamic, you start to see different behaviours and results. And keep in mind what the prizes are too. Some people will value time in the form of an afternoon off over money in the form of a voucher, which all ties back to getting a real understanding of what makes each individual tick. And then lastly, be conscious and be aware of your conscious and unconscious biases, as this will help any of you make far better decisions in what you do. I strongly recommend that anyone do some self-learning about this. Keep in mind that everyone in your team is unique. They're more than just a number, and all bring various values and challenges to the table. So in summary, culture is more than a tagline. It's making sure that we're all open-minded, inclusive, adaptable, diverse and creative in all that we say and do on a daily basis to engage and empower everyone and everywhere as well. Because my belief is culture is a foundation for all the building blocks that we talk about here. And the plan for the culture you put in place will lead you to either failure or success. So leaders, you may already be doing all these things, but set a plan and vision around what the outcome is you want to achieve. Tie that back to a timeline, identify what activities, initiatives and budgets you need to move through your roadmap. And SDRs participate in cultivating a culture of openness and trust to ensure your voice is heard and your feedback is applied. I promise you the best SDRs I've managed have been the ones that have really embraced developing team culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raj. I loved that. That was brilliant. I took tons of notes, so thank you. I actually remember when you came to your first sales confidence event at the Andaz about 2 years ago. So finally got you to speak at one.
Finally. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next up we have Sara from Snowflake. So Sara joined Snowflake in January of this year. Prior to Snowflake, she's held roles at Exis, Vita XL, and has worked as an independent sales contractor as well. So tons of experience and insight that she's going to share. And today, Sara's 7-minute talk is going to be on the 3 ways to elevate both your talent and revenue pipeline. So I'm excited to hear this, Sara. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shabri. So I will start by saying what James told me when he asked me to speak. So he said, keep it actionable. And what I did, I went all in. So I made it 100% actionable. And I will talk for 7 minutes and leave you with some practical things that you can do. And many people want to know what it is and what is happening on the insides of Snowflake. So I will give you 3 very concrete tools that you can use And you can execute better call down days, developing your team through mentorship, and having better team meetings, getting your SDR team to be more efficient and more action driven. So as you just heard, my name is Sara, and I've been in sales and sales development for the last 10 years. Today, I'm heading up one of the 4 EMEA SDR teams at Snowflake. And in my decade in sales, I've never seen a company so forward-thinking, so action-driven at Snowflake, so it really fits me. And before we get to it, my call to action is grab something to take notes on, because I think you will want to take action on some of the things that I will talk about. And I talk quite quick, so write quick. The first thing I want to talk about is something that happened at Snowflake last week. All of us have call down days with our SDRs, but last week we took it to the next level. And I'm going to share with you the 4 things that we did, which made it a success. We actually ended up booking in one day our whole weekly target. So here are the 4 things that we did. Number 1, we asked all of our SDRs to submit a list of prospects that they will call to and have a deadline to submit this list the night before. This way, you're setting yourself up for success in advance, and everyone shows up ready to go, and you lose 0 time on finding numbers, finding accounts, finding prospects on the competition day. 2, we're all in Zoom meetings all day. We're back to back sitting in Zoom meetings. So how do you make a call down day interactive? You don't have a gong, you cannot run to a whiteboard. So how do you keep the momentum going? Well, we created a very basic Excel template with a graph showing the leaderboard. And we were living in this document. We were living in this leaderboard, and everyone got pumped up. We could see in real time how many conversations and how many meetings it would take to be number 3, number 1. Where are you at? Number 3, a prize to be won. Goes without saying, most people are motivated by winning. So make sure that there's a prize for the winner at the end of the day. But make sure that you're off to a quick start. And we did that by having 2 prizes. First one to whoever was first to book 4 meetings, and the second one who had the most points at the end of the day. So this way, you make it a sprint to get to the 4 meetings and a marathon to get to the end of the day. And this is really a recipe for success. The 4th one, share the successes with the teams you support. We're all in a supporting function, so make sure that the AEs and the sales managers hear about that you're going to have a call down day before it happens. And of course, share your successes afterwards. What meetings did you book? How many? With who? What pipeline was generated? Tell them all this and bring them on board in your excitement. The second concrete thing I want to talk about is mentorship. Encourage your SDRs to get mentors. Not one mentor, several mentors. So I work for Snowflake, a data company. Let's get into some data. There was a recent study that showed that 71% of Fortune 500 companies actively encourage mentoring. And of those who had a mentor, 97% said they're valuable. But only 1/3 of professionals actually have a mentor. So do you know if your SDRs have a mentor? And if not, listen up. And you cannot see everyone's faces here. I see we're 46 people, but there are so many SDR managers on this call or on LinkedIn or wherever you can find them that can teach your SDRs something. Find out together with your SDRs what they want to be better at, and find people other than yourselves who are experts at that and can complement you. People come to me for mentoring on 3 things. 1, getting the most out of your teams and create a culture of ownership. 2, making pipeline generation fun and interactive. And 3, how to develop as a leader. So my ask from you today, yes, you, one of you 46 SDR managers out there, is these 4 things. talk to an SDR in your team who is ready to develop further, and find 3 things together that he or she wants to get better at. And find 2 people, with at least one of them being internal in the company you work and higher in the ranks than the SDR is, and encourage the SDR to ask for mentorship and tell what he or she wants to learn from that person and why they chose to ask them. And of course, make introductions if it's needed and you know the person they want as a mentor. The 4th one, when it comes to mentorship, is the most important one. Show the SDR how to drive these engagements. How do you make a mentorship plan? How do you own an agenda? How do you take good notes? How do you write down action items for yourself? And that is how you build efficient mentorship and get your SDRs to grow in a record speed, like you've never seen before. The 3rd and final thing, I think most of us here on the call have been in back-to-back Zoom meetings, just looking at a day and thinking, how did I survive this? My head is a blur. So how do you make every single team meeting that you have with your SDRs more efficient? Well, I hope you still have some room in your notebook, because here it comes. You need to start wrapping up your meetings with your team the way that I will wrap up my 7 minutes here today. When you have 5 minutes left of your team meeting, you ask everyone in the room to think of a main takeaway from the meeting and what baby step action they will take. So you go around the room, everyone shares a main takeaway and a baby step action they will take. If you do this, you will see 3 things immediately happening in your team. They will be more present in the room. They will be less on Slack, less on their inbox. They will be more with you. You will also see them showing up ready to learn, ready to develop, because they know you're going to ask for a main takeaway and a baby step. And the 3rd thing, as a leader, you will start to see where they want to go individually based on what they choose as a key takeaway and baby step. So I will end here today and wrap up my 7 minutes with an ask to each and every one on this call who's up for it. I want you to go on LinkedIn. I want you to add me and share with me what was your main takeaway from these 7 minutes and what baby steps will you implement and take away from this today. And I really can't wait to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Sara, I wanted to talk about the main takeaway and the baby steps. I absolutely love that. We'll talk about that no doubt in the panel. So Shabri, remember to bring that up in the conversation at the end. So our final speaker today, this is really exciting actually, because I've been working with Shabri for a couple of years now, and watching her team grow as much as this as a community has grown has been one of the pleasures of my role as the founder of Sales Confidence. So Blake, where are you dialing in from today?
I'm calling in from Boston in the US.
Amazing. Thank you for getting involved today. So Blake Kendrick is the head of consulting for SalesWorks, working alongside Shabri Lakhani, who is the CEO and founder and also our partner on this event. And he's going to be talking about where's the handoff, maintaining a healthy SDR AE handoff process. Blake joined SalesWorks in February last year as Director of Operations and has since been promoted to Head of Consulting. I think so many people can relate to the importance as an SDR manager to understand the operations area. So to have your thinking in this is really important. I'm grateful. He's had previous roles at Fuel Funnel, Comcast, and To The Point Marketing Agency, and he's also a member of the Revenue Collective. So Blake, over to you. Thank you very much for getting involved and wrapping up this event today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thanks to Sales Confidence for putting on this event. And obviously thank you to all the attendees, because you guys make it worthwhile for us to speak at these types of events. So I'm going to jump right into my topic. As James mentioned, it's about the healthy handoff between SDRs and AEs. And I think the other speakers brought up a lot of really great points about, Sara and Raj both talked about culture and the clarity and communication. Luke talked about, putting structure behind the SDR position. And these are all really important pieces that come into play during the handoff as well. So First off, let's dive into it. There are 5 principles that I want you guys to take away today. And the first one is getting comfortable with the concept of a specialized sales team. And that might seem really obvious because obviously you can't have a handoff process unless there's a handoff actually happening. But a lot of companies take full cycle sales reps and they hold on to those positions for a lot longer than they should. And at some point, they end up having such a large laundry list of responsibilities, and the volume of their responsibilities goes up as the company grows too, that they inevitably become less successful at handling any aspect of that sales process. What you end up looking at is productivity kinds of looks like this wave-like pattern, and you have hills and valleys of revenue production and then stall points. And what's happening there is the rep has to step away and perform research in order to fuel their own pipeline. So the only way to really change that and move away from that stutter pattern of that wave and change it to a cycle is not by reducing volume, because obviously nobody wants to do that, but by instead specializing the function of the sales group. So you want to split those up to the SDR and the AE. After you've done so, you also want to make sure that you're splitting out the job descriptions for each of those roles. That's principle number 2. Obviously, this helps with the hiring process more than anything else. You can get the right candidates in the door, but it also really helps us to reckon with this constant stigma that everybody deals with, and that's that SDRs are second-class citizens compared to AEs. And that's simply not true. You wouldn't look at 2 scientists, right? One who's collecting field samples and one who's analyzing things behind a microscope and say, well, one is more trustworthy or one is more valuable to the process. You need both of them. Same thing goes for business. The SDRs are serving up the qualified leads and giving the AEs something to work on and use their time effectively for in managing pipeline. And then obviously the AEs are there to close that business and keep everybody growing and running in line. So if you don't think that you buy into that belief that SDRs are less valuable, take a look at your career development pathway. And this is a really easy thing to look at. If your SDRs have a direct promotion path to AE, it suggests that you're thinking, okay, the SDR is the training sort of period for the AE. And really you can develop those SDR skills and have a really advanced and talented SDR individual and keep your AE as a completely separate position. So I challenge you to look at those. Now, if we're talking about building the job descriptions, obviously we want some actionable items. For SDRs, I would say the big things to look at would be researching new prospects, setting appointments, and then conducting intro and discovery calls, actually handling the calls themselves, not just appointment setting. For AEs, you're going to obviously be conducting the qual calls and demo calls, the things that take place after that initial conversation. And then you're also going to be managing pipeline. Now, I know I mentioned getting rid of the full cycle sales reps, but another thing that AEs are really well positioned for based on their tenure and their experience in the industry is to, from a full cycle standpoint, handle engagement with target accounts. They know how to get in the doors. They know how to look for the right players. They know how to spend their time effectively. It doesn't always make sense in a target account, especially when you're developing a relationship and a lot of trust, to have a handoff in that process. So consider that as well for your AE responsibilities. Principle number 3, you want to establish KPIs that recognize the right accomplishments. So to be clear, everybody's responsibility, we know, throughout the organization, whether in operations or marketing or product or whatever, everybody is responsible for driving revenue at the end of the day. So knowing that, it's dangerous for us to assume that SDRs or even AEs should be evaluated based off of their execution of activities. So activity volumes, calls made, emails sent. Instead, we want to look at, based on our org's maturity, KPIs that start with literal metrics, and then we want to work backwards to inferential metrics. And to translate that and put that in more simple terms, our revenue contributions are going to be the literal contributions, right? Our AEs are managing pipeline, so that's pretty obvious. When they close revenue, they've made a contribution there. If you don't have this in place, I would advise you to structure your CRM so that you can attach SDR names to your opportunities and deal records as well. That way you can have this full view of, has an SDR contributed to that revenue closure as well. And as you have the relationship, the organization's maturity continues and your KPIs become a little bit more rigid, you have a good idea of your qualification criteria, you have a good idea of your conversion rates, take a step back and look at your SDRs and instead evaluate them on qualified prospects produced. And that does not necessarily mean meetings booked. It's not the same thing. The important piece is that you have prospects that are vetted by the SDRs and also accepted by the AEs. And you might think, well, how do I read that in my system? Pretty easy. If you are creating opportunities after an SDR has engaged, then that's a reason to believe that a prospect was accepted by the AE. So take a look at your ops count and see who's contributing to that in terms of new ops created in the handoff. The fourth fourth principle, now we're getting into more tactical ideas, is defining the handoff point. So the handoff point is going to be that exact moment where you want the record to transfer from the SDR to the AE. And it very simply happens when the prospect is qualified. From a CRM standpoint, this can mean a whole bunch of different technical actions. So it's really tough to evaluate that based on your different systems. It could be hitting a conversion button or reassigning an owner or any other number of actions for changing lifecycle stages. So keep it focused on the event, that qualification and that acceptance, and then choose a technical action that makes sense from the user standpoint. You want to make it easy to do, and you also want it to be very visible to the SDR, to the AE, and in your reporting as well, in your KPI reporting. The main takeaway for evaluating the handoff point is that you want to make sure that that visibility is there because the AE is accountable for this degree of SDR success. If they are not working a handed off lead with urgency, then you're wasting the investment in that SDR and you're devaluing their work. Now, the next one is defining the handoff criteria. This is different from the point that happens itself. So here we're talking about qualification. And in this case, it's actually the SDR has the accountability for the AE's success. So if a lead isn't adequately qualified, it's going to be a waste of the AE's talent and time to work on that record. So to make sure everybody's in line, you really can use any qualification framework you want. Usually for SDRs, you have something a little bit more simplified, not talking about relationships. So things like BANT, CHAMP. It doesn't really matter what methodology you use, but both the SDRs and the AEs should understand what the meaning of that framework is. They should understand when the qual criteria are being met. Those are two different things. And then you also want to make sure that anyone reviewing a given CRM record can quickly observe whether or not qual criteria has been met. And that's especially during the point of handoff. So if anybody that you're going to focus time on training, hey, recognize whether or not this person is qualified, it's going to be AE who's going to be receiving that record. And finally, we want to just reinforce that fairly often. So when we have our qualification criteria defined, the SDR's experience, the AE's experience, marketing's experience, customer success, they're all going to have contributions to make that identify and refine what our idea of qualified is. So it's not just a profile fit. It could be some other dimension of attitude or refining what the need criteria is. So we want to collect that information, retrain on it as much as possible. If you didn't hear anything else, I know I'm a little over time here, but the main concepts: define what your team's roles mean and how they contribute to the big picture of driving revenue. Identify the actions expected of each position, and then celebrate the accomplishments of every team member. And once you do that, you're able to keep people engaged, prevent burnout, encourage creativity in the sales position, which is also something that we really don't emphasize enough. And most importantly, at least for this topic, you're going to foster collaboration between members of the sales org. So I'm Blake Kendrick at SalesWorks. That's my topic. Thank you very much for listening.
Super actionable, and I know a topic that a number of sales development teams struggle with. So thank you for sharing the insights. Okay, if I could ask the other speakers to also come on stage, we'll go straight into to the panel discussion. So all of the attendees, feel free to put any questions in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them as we see them come in. But I think, whilst we're waiting for that, I think Sara will take what you had said and actually, open that up to the speakers as well, and ask each speaker to maybe share their main takeaway and their baby step action as a result of this event. So no pressure. But Sara, maybe we can start with you.
Definitely. So I would say for me, the main takeaway is I need to attend more events. It's been months since I was in an event. I need to attend more. And the baby step action is I'm going to sign up for an event today.
Brilliant. I love that. Well, great to have had you today. Jack, what about yourself?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I'm very much in Sara's camp as well, in terms of definitely keen to attend more events, whether they're on Hopin or also in person, hopefully in the very near future. And I think in terms of like my baby step, I think it would be to really dig into the playbook. I think actually after hearing what Luke said, that's a very ongoing project for us. And there's a lot of really actionable stuff in there. So definitely going to go over Luke's slides if you get access to them.
Yeah. And I like Luke's point. A lot of companies invest so much time and effort in creating the playbook, but the last piece that he mentioned of actually using the playbook, right? So it doesn't just sit in a Google Drive and never revisited. So I think that was one for me that I took away. Raj, what about yourself? What was your main takeaway in your baby step action?
Yeah, I think similar to the others. I think for me it's putting and collating all the stuff that we have internally into Playbook. So we have a lot of disparate sources. So I think for me that's the main takeaway. And I think baby steps is maybe putting a few people together to get their takes on what they need more or less of, I think, right? And getting that feedback, because I think it's something we need to review personally. So baby steps and bigger steps there.
Fantastic. Okay, Blake, going to come over to you before we get Luke in.
Yeah, I agree with everybody about the events. I mean, the continued learning, the landscape has just changed so much in terms of what the daily workload looks like, how to address that, especially in remote settings and things like that. So the events has been really helpful, really enlightening. And then beyond that, post-event, really getting involved with connections and having conversations, real feedback from people. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, spot on. And I think, just at SalesWorks, one of our values has always been learning. And I think, it's so easy, as you mentioned, Sara, just to be on back-to-back Zoom calls all day, but actually taking time out and carving out time, once a week or more often if you can, to actually attend webinars, listen to podcasts, read books and things like that. Because otherwise it sort of falls off the to-do list. So thank you. And, it's a huge learning to even have this structure taking into a team meeting. So thank you. Luke, let's bring you on. Hey, Luke.
There we go. I cannot tell you how much I dislike technology, but no, good to be back.
What's your main takeaway in your baby step action?
I think just echoing what everyone else has said. I think definitely getting involved in more events. I think we put so much emphasis on training and developing our BDRs, and like we mentioned, we really failed to invest in ourselves and our own knowledge. And I think there's every single talk that's been done today, I've learned something new, and it's an actionable item that I'll definitely take on starting from tomorrow. So definitely getting involved in more events, networking a lot more as well. I really love the mentorship and really developing and defining a culture, not just at the BDR world, but on a global sort of company scale as well.
Absolutely. Well, look, with that in mind, we've got networking functionality here on Hopin. So everyone, speakers and attendees, on the left-hand side of your screen, you will see a little handshake icon, which is the networking. So if you click on that, It's a great feature of this platform. It will take you straight to one-to-one networking, and you have 60 or 90 seconds, and it sort of connects you with people, and then you can move on to the next. So a big thank you to James and the Sales Confidence team for putting on yet another amazing SDR manager event. We're going to have one more this year, and then we're also going to do an award ceremony. So the top 50 SDR managers. So I'm really, really excited for the awards, because it's time and apt to give recognition to this role and to this community of amazing people too. So a big thank you to Sales Confidence, a huge thank you to the speakers. There's a lot of effort that goes behind the scenes here. So a big thank you for delivering such insightful conversations. And for all of those of you who took time to attend, thank you very much. And you can head over to the networking section now.
Thank you, Shabri, and again, thank you, James. Great event.